Welcome to Circle Podcast, brought to you by Circle Sanctuary, one of the oldest nature spirituality churches in the United States, connecting people of nature-centered paths around the world. Join us throughout the week for a variety of shows discussing various topics, celebrating the divine in all of its forms through nature worship, rituals, education, and building bridges of community. Welcome to Urban Unwitches, a podcast to educate, inform, and expand the pagan community. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches, and listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. You can also join us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches. Now, back to the show. Well, I'm sorry.
That was a very long story. I'm going to work really hard on brevity today. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I'm sorry that my fake psych myself out led to reliving your trauma.
I relive a lot of trauma. It's a thing.
It's true.
It keeps me sassy.
So let's see. We normally talk about what we've been doing. I have been doing a lot of work on the podcast, and I have been eating crap food. I've been learning to make crap food. I made a new high protein mac and cheese. Okay. And I made it the healthy way. But the problem is that if you reheat it, it's dry.
Mm-hmm. The protein.
Like really dry. And so now I'm kind of facing this issue. Like, how do you get one that's still creamy the next time you heat it up? Because I want to make one that I use all week, but that's no good to me if it tastes like crap the next time you heat it up.
So this is going to make it not healthy, but when you've added protein to it, it kind of dries it out. Like,
yeah,
I've fought the battle of the bulge my whole life. I'm perpetually losing it. It's more like a war of attrition at this point. But when you add any kind of protein, and you try to make it a little healthier, that of course means less dairy and less saturated fat, and all that other fun stuff. Well, those fun little lipids are what keep it moist. Like warm cheese and dairy and all that, it's got those lipids in it, right? So the only thing you can do at that point once it dries out is to reintroduce that moisture. And
right.
The most soluble way to do that is to add a couple tablespoons of heavy cream to it and then mix it together and heat it that way.
Okay, I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it salvaged many a macaroni and cheese for me.
Yeah, I'll have to do something because it's not good the second time. It's great the first time was great, and then the second time I was like, oh, I don't know that I can palate this twice. So that's been going on, and then I'm poly, so I've been on some horrific dates.
I get for our viewers, I did get some updates following some of these experiences, and I'm like, thank God I'm married and one is enough to occupy my lack of attention span, because God, dating is difficult.
Oh my God, it's awful. And I'm poly and I'm pagan. And unfortunately in the pagan world, there is a sect of white supremacists who have co-opted the Nordic religions and utilize that to justify their bigotry. Mm-hmm. And so they see poly pagan, and poly to a lot of guys who are not poly means easy. It doesn't. And then pagan means white supremacist, evidently. And so I get these guys that seem perfectly nice, and then they'll say something like, yes, I study Odin, or I worship Odin, or I study the runes. And I have started just blatantly going, so can Black people be Norse practitioners? Like, that's the question. And if you answer wrong, then I block you. I don't even have time. But the other thing I've started doing is going and looking, and I've learned politically moderate or not saying what you're politically leaning means Trump.
Yes.
That's what it really means. Yeah. And it's taken me a while to put all this together, but I'm like, oh, when they don't say, it's because they know it's going to make them look bad and people will swipe left. And so they just don't say. I got it. And when they say moderate, they're really on the right leaning side, but they're
Mhm.
trying to present themselves in a more neutral way, which is how I ended up out with a transphobe the other day. But I'm
Mhm.
learning. I'm learning, so it's good. What's been going on with you?
Well, I mean, that's a many varied question. So we are currently bracing the Pacific Northwest for September's The Great Migration, as I'm calling it. My mom and my young or oldest niece rather are going to be moving out here in September. And I'm reminding myself why I've enjoyed having a continent between me and my family drama. Um, because my mother at any given moment is ready to accept the Oscar for leading dramatic actress in a melodrama. Like she has prepared herself her entire life, and she will never let go of the resentment that she's never had the moment to stand on a winding circular staircase in a dress made out of curtains in this kind of posture. She is she is that kind of Southern, and I love her. Everybody finds her very charismatic. I've been over it since the age of 8 because I've lived with it. I see the mess behind the glitz. So I get a call at work the other day, and it is my mother saying, I cannot move to Seattle if this is how she's gonna talk to me. And I'm like, oh, sweet Danu. Oh, every goddess who has anything to do with patience and mercy, descend upon me now and be the wind beneath my wings because I'd had a difficult day. Customers were being weird, and I somehow I got like 3 trainees at the same time. So as I was walking across the sales floor, I had these 3 little people bobbing behind me. I looked like a mother duck with her little ducklings. It was that joke has been a repeat thing at work for the last week. So I get this call and I'm like, excuse me, guys. And I step out and I go to a kind of an abandoned corner of the front lot. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And it is just nonsense. These are 2 grown people who don't know how to talk to each other. My mother was a cop. She's taken hostage negotiation courses, right? She can't talk to an 18-year-old who's emotionally unregulated. I don't know what this is, but this 68-year-old former Leo is getting owned in a conversation by an 18-year-old, and it's difficult to watch. But finally, I just kind of went off. And that, looking back, I wish I had not gone off because when I go off, it's always just as dramatic as my mother. I'm turning into her. That is a truth I'm having difficulty digesting.
We Southerns fight drama with drama.
We do. It's like when you've got a wildfire, sometimes you got to do a control burn so that
Right.
there's nothing to like you got to exhaust yourself with it. There's a strategy. I'm not saying it works, but it keeps things entertaining. Um, so yeah, I finally was like, you know what? If you do not want to move to the Pacific Northwest after I have done A, B, C, and D, I will have a PowerPoint incoming. I used the passive aggressive guilt and it was effective. And I'm like, the next time I get a phone call like this, you will not hear from me for 6 months. This is so disrespectful. And then like the next morning, hey son, how's your day going? It was like it never happened.
It's
And
like
I'm like,
never. We're
seriously,
so good at that. We're so
ah,
good at that. What? That
so
didn't
good.
happen.
Like things
Everything's fine.
didn't happen. Like everybody's looking at the Southeast right now, and as they're trying to like erase like the entire race history from our country and the very
Yeah.
complex relationship with that. They're like, this is so offensive. I'm like, you have no idea how effective it is in those regions because
Yes.
once you decide it doesn't happen, it never happened, and it's awful, but they're really good at it. And then I mean, other than that, just kind of the weird ups and downs of the world recently. Like,
Oh yeah.
we went through several weeks of just every day was like Black Friday. It was like we had 50, 60 people on the floor all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
we had 10, 11, 12 person wait lists. And even though we're fully staffed for the first time in forever, it was a lot. And now there's nothing. Like the last like 3 weeks, it's like the world is holding its breath,
Yep.
waiting for something to happen. Also, I will apologize. There is someone in my neighborhood who is trying to play Moonlight Sonata on their Subaru car horn, and they won't stop.
Sorry. I
It's
can't
only
hear
when I
them.
talk to you, Dia. It's only when we
I
start doing
know, I know, I know. It's only when we do podcasting. Um, okay, so the only other thing that I've been doing is crafting,
it.
and it's important because LARP. And now I'm trying to figure out what to wear to LARP this weekend, which is at a big convention, and I'll be sitting at the booth, so I need to represent. And I did get my swords all decked out, and I got a new frog on my a baldric. The baldric is the strap that you put your swords on. The
Hmm.
frog is the part that holds the sword. And so I now have a new baldric on my a new frog on my baldric to hold my both my swords now. So that's good. And that's all that I've been doing. That's it. We have moms, and see what happened there was you started talking about politics and it freaked me out.
Yes.
It's a knee-jerk reaction to go, no, no, no. I just,
Yeah.
oh
Keep it
God, that
away from me.
stresses me out so bad. But one of the interesting things is I had an unpleasant experience to talk with a person who was on the other side of the aisle. And one of the interesting things that they said to me, um, before all the bigotry happened,
Hmm.
is they were like, yeah, I see the politics and it just makes me anxious. And I thought, wow, how universal it is that
Hmm.
they don't agree with what's happening, but it makes them as anxious as it makes us, right? Like that
Yeah. Yeah.
they're winning, and but they're still having that anxiety, they're still freaking out, they're still not really happy with what's happening. And I just thought that was an interesting observation. I was like,
Definitely.
that's interesting that
Yeah.
I'm not the only one. And it's on both sides of the aisles. We're all
Hmm.
freaking out. We're
Yeah, we're
all
totally.
anxious.
This was
So anyway,
there was an encounter that I had. It was at a family function where I'm the only screaming liberal. I used to say I was a social liberal, fiscal moderate, which was a nice way of saying I really like granola and I don't drink Budweiser. Get out of my face, because I'm from Florida, and
right.
I realized I actually wound up having a political conversation, which I never do with my family because I'm the only member of my family, and when they argue almost as well as I do. So when there's 10 of them, it's just not fair. Um, I had a conversation with them and it was surprisingly open and cogent because I was careful in how I presented things. But they honestly feel most of the people on the other side of the aisle feel actually pretty similar. The biggest issues that are dividing us right now are the issues that the internet has inflated.
Yep.
And like I hate to use a phrase that a certain person has coined, but fake news. Like fake news is a thing. Sadly,
Yep.
it is used effectively by this very same person, but fake news. And it's a thing.
So I'm gonna have to look this up real quick. This is totally off topic, but it is not. So I have been reading this woman, and I really like her books, and they're romance books. I'm gonna give you a heads up. I'm going into my I don't keep physical books anymore. They're
Mhm.
all in my Kindle. Hang on. Let's see. So I'm letting this load. But anyway, one of the things that she has been focusing on is Russia's propaganda war against the United States. And so
Mhm.
she's done all of this, um, uh, all of this uh, research into how that propaganda machine works and how it's utilizing gaming and music and anything you can think of. It's being used by Russia to propagandize the United States and create what she calls an us versus them narrative.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter who the us or is or the them is, as long as it's a divisive narrative. That's what they're going for. It's an us versus them. Her name is Fiona Quinn. You could read any of her books, and she talks about this ad nauseum, and not in a bad way. It's just, to me, it's fascinatingly interesting
Yes.
that she's pointing this out, that we are actually products of this propaganda war that's being waged against the United States. And we're not the only ones. In this last book, she got to talking about Finland and how Finland has actually enacted ways to fight this propaganda. And the main heroine in this particular book goes to Finland to learn how they've done it and how they are fighting the Kremlin's attempts to make them a divided nation, and the things that they're doing from a very young age in their education system to stop it from happening, and
Mhm.
those things are now being employed in places like the Ukraine and other places, in the Eastern Bloc, in an attempt to stop this propaganda from happening. But the problem is the United States has to get with it. We have to understand this is what's happening to us before
Right.
we do something about it. But nobody wants to admit this. They've done a good job. People are
Mhm.
too busy fighting each other to
Mhm.
understand we've both been manipulated. Not
Yeah.
both sides have
Yeah.
been manipulated. So
There.
anyway, Fiona Quinn, great author, but it's a romance. I'm gonna give it to you, but she has some great books about this propaganda machine, and I really recommend her.
I love that we accidentally, because I sometimes think, how are we going to segue into like today's topic? And this is actually absolutely perfect because we're dealing with like the existential anxiety of our times and all of that.
Hmm.
So, because our topic today is meditation, which is a kind of a foundation stone of a craft practice, one of the benefits of meditation is control of anxiety. And so, like, as we're talking about it today, so this is something I have a lot of experience with because I spent 15 years as a massage therapist and all that. So the process of stress and anxiety, like on like a physiological and chemical level, is something I used to deal with constantly. And like as people are going through like mental health therapy as well as physical rehab and therapy and how those journeys are combined, this is an area I got to play in. And because of this background and all the reading I've done around it, I'm watching what's happening today at this runaway train. And I'm like, everybody is so angry. And this was so predictable because as soon as somebody figured out how far they could push it, how programmable and trainable humans are, somebody was going to do it and they did it. And so now, like, even people who try to exist in a state of presence, like with their craft practice and all of that, they have a really hard time. Like, I have a really hard time not getting pulled away. Clickbait gets me too, and it drives me crazy because I knew going into it. And it's like you were talking about like how in Finland and the Eastern Bloc they're trying to teach their kids how to kind of separate the truth from the propaganda. It is a boring class, but one of my most focused on classes, I won't even say it's my most enjoyable because it's as dry as a saltine cracker, is pagan epistemology. And that's the study of how to study. Like how do you vet your resources? Because there's so much out there that's just nonsense, right? And if you try to fold that nonsense in, you don't really know where it came from. A lot of it's unverifiable personal gnosis and everything. But yeah, this I love that this is where we started today with all of our favorite friends.
Yep, I am too. And meditation is something that I've struggled with. I'll never forget, Richard Sells, my teacher, one day went off on a rant to me about how I wasn't meditating and da 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 da. And so then I looked at him and said, "How often do you meditate?" And he said, "Shut up."
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I was like, "Oh, okay." In a second.
Yeah. I have been the Richard Sells in that conversation with my
Yeah.
students.
Hmm.
Um, I want to give a kind of a shout out to everybody who's listening to this because this is a surprisingly there's a lot of emotions tied into meditation for me because it was
Hmm.
probably the hardest journey of anything that I've made in my craft practice because I got a late in life ADHD diagnosis. Now anybody who knows Kyler is probably surprised that I did not know this. I'm generally considered a self-aware human being, but I don't have a little bit of ADHD. I have a lot
Right.
of ADHD. I got
Hmm.
the full pie, right? And I remember I was with a group that I was with for over 10 years. And I mean we felt very safe together. We achieved a point. Um it didn't last forever, but we achieved a point of great balance. I remember we were doing a guided journey, and I was laying there. I had stilled my breathing, I'd counted my heartbeats, I'd done all of that. We were going into a trance state so we could do like a guided journey and all that. And then the next thing I know, something landed on my face because I had quite fallen asleep. I had not just fallen asleep, I was snoring. And then because we were at a farm way out in the country and we had this big wraparound Florida porch, a cricket had gotten in and it landed on my face, and I punched myself in the face and sent my glasses flying across the floor. And everyone laughed at me, and I felt bad. I couldn't do a guided journey because I would wander, my mind would wander, or I would fall asleep every single time. I have bought so many CDs. For those of you who remember what CDs are, they were the things before iTunes and downloads and all that. I have just stacks of them, and I've never
Yeah.
gotten through a single one without falling asleep until I got treatment for my ADHD. And now I can do books on tape and all that. But a lot of the folks who are going to possibly listen to this podcast have struggled with meditation. And if you have ADD, if you had to have attention deficit, if you have hyperactivity, any of that, meditation, if not approached in the right way, is going to be a huge challenge for you. You have to take your diagnosis into account, and there are ways to get around that because when you do hyper focus, you wonderful people, you really hyper focus. ADHD and ADD can have superpower side effects. You just have to approach it in the right way. So I just want to give that shout out to anybody who may be listening. I made it through that journey. I learned a lot of tips and tricks. Hopefully, what we talk about today will help you in the same way because it was tough for me. End of PSA.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I think I had to go to, a more active meditation type, which Thich Nhat Hanh is really uh to me is the kind of quintessential person who really taught me that. And I read several of his books about active meditation. And what I mean by that is if you're washing dishes, you wash dishes with extreme focus and extreme intent. And you find that that brings yourself into a meditative state if you do it. So I that's what I did. I was like, screw all this sitting there and falling asleep thing. I'm going to get up and walk with intention and I'm going to meditate that way. So that's, I think that is one of the misunderstandings about meditation is that first, all meditation is and, sit there and don't move. I think that's one of the misunderstandings about meditation. What's some others, do you think?
Um, so that there's one, just the one way to do meditation. Meditation comes in so many different categories. And also a lot of the misunderstanding just kind of comes from how it was introduced to the West, because the only form of meditation the West had because of, the presence of the Catholic Church and then Protestantism was through prayer. Like
Mm-hmm.
all meditative focus was through that. And even today, if you engage in yoga or meditation, there are certain Christian sects who view that as a gateway to the devil and all that. That you've tried it and it doesn't work. That's a big thing for me because I went through that period where, I'm just really bad at meditation. Um, if you don't research meditation, you're probably never going to come across it in our culture a way that works for you. So
Mm-hmm.
the I tried it and it didn't work thing is probably the biggest block because when it doesn't work hard. That's been my experience. Like it really just spectacularly fails and nobody gets any benefit out of it. So that's probably the biggest one for me.
I think another one is, and I have I can't do that. I hear that a lot from my students.
Hmm.
Meditation, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you can't do it at all. I mean, or can you not do it in one traditional way that you've been told is how you meditate,
Hmm.
or not? And I think also that what goes along with that is um, not being aware when they're in a meditative state. One of the best things that I ever got taught by some random human being in the universe actually walked us into a meditative state and said, this is a meditative state. You're in it now. What does that feel like? Think about it. How does your body feel? What does your mind feel? What do your emotions feel? What kind of sensation do you understand? Like, he just hammered it in. This is what it feels like. And I think once you know what meditation feels like, you suddenly find that you can end up in meditative states in various ways and not know. You're not aware that you're in it because you didn't know that that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so you're actually meditating more than you think, but you just don't know that.
Yes, that is so very well said. I think one of the issues that we deal with around meditation, especially in the craft, which desperately needs meditation, because you need to be self-aware, you need to be grounded and present for so much of what we do in our practice, is that the foundations, the fundamentals are not taught culturally. So
Right.
if they are, they're taught from a cultural standpoint of something other. Like I went to Bikram yoga, or I went to a breathing class at my local gym, or the Y or something like that. Like just the basics that other cultures, other regions have around this process. But like meditation is literally nothing more than the process of watching your own brain think. It's nothing more than being in a point of contemplation. If the funniest thing, it doesn't work for me, I can't meditate. I had a student tell me this, and I had known this student for a while, and they loved music. They were a musician, they loved music. You put
Yep.
on the right beat, and they would zone completely out. They actually got to the hardest form of meditation, or like they went the hardest route to a blank state, and they did it immediately with no effort
Right.
because they were listening to the right music. And
Right.
it was so funny because they're telling me this, and I had given them a ride to the class that day, and they had done it 3 times in the car on
Right.
on the way to the class for them to tell me I don't know how to do this. Um, and they didn't know how to do it consciously, but they were still
Right.
doing it.
They were doing it.
Um, yeah. I mean, much of what we in the West know of as meditation is like the Vipassana yoga, the like that comes to
Yeah.
us out of India and the Vedic practices. And that focuses on a completely blank state. I have discovered that does not work for Americans. We
Mm-mm.
are we're twitchy. As a people, we are anxious and twitchy, and we're kind of a reactive culture. Our brains are never blank unless we are just thousand yards staring, and that's because usually mental exhaustion. So, like, I have personally given up on the meditation on nothing because it doesn't work for me. But yeah, I've tried. It doesn't work for me particularly. I can get the benefits from something else. And I do. I meditate often. That's just not a method that works super well for me, because the moment that I start thinking about, oh, I did it, I'm out of that state. So it's kind of like the game. Like you talk about the game, you've lost the game. Um, my brain gets stuck in a cognitive loop on that one. But like in meditation, there are like 3 categories, right? There's like the meditation on something, the meditation on nothing, and the meditation on everything. That's usually how I break it down.
Okay.
And yeah, meditation on nothing is like impossible for most Americans. We're used to a steady stream of stimulus. We've got to
Hmm.
be doing something. We don't know how to sit still. And that's because culturally we're amped up. I mean, there's a reason Starbucks started here and did so well, right?
Right.
Um, and then meditation on something is your box breathing. You're focusing on your breath. You're focusing on a CD that you're listening to, music, rhythm, anything. Even like the grounding and centering tree meditation that is so popular in Wicca. That's meditation on something, and the meditation on everything is like, expanding your awareness bit by bit until you are bringing in all sensory input to the point where you've expanded yourself outward. And like most people don't even know that there are these other options. It's just the Vipassana.
Right. And one of the ways that I learned about this was that I had a friend. Okay, y'all, don't make fun. I had a Volkswagen Rabbit that had a um, tape deck and he gives me a bootleg tape and he goes, "Hey, listen to this on the way home from Circle." So I stuck it into my tape deck and I'm driving down the road and I suddenly am outside of my body. And I'm looking at myself driving the car and I'm like, WTF? Like, what the heck is going on right now? And so I punched the tape out of its tape deck and threw it in the back seat, bam, back in my body. And I was like, I get home, I call the guy. I'm like, "What did you give me?" And he was like, "Oh, it's an astral sound projection thing." "Why? Did it work?" And I was like, "Yes, while I was driving. Maybe you should have told me what I was looking at before I got my car. But don't think astral projecting while you're in the vehicle is a good idea." And so, yeah, so sound, that was my big, oh, by the way, there are other ways you can get there. And sound is one of those ways. And there's a lot of science behind that, that you can tap into on YouTube and places like that, and just download these sounds that will put you in these different meditative type states that are based on science, which to me is really cool because I love it when science and magic intersect. What did Gardner do when it came to meditation?
So, oh, you throw these things down. It's like you were just like, okay, we're going in this direction. Also, Kyler, here's this shiny, shiny thing I'm gonna put in front of you and watch as your pupils dilate. So Gardner and meditation. So specifically on meditation, Gardner, not a huge thing. Gardner is actually the reason why modern Wicca has such a focus on like auras and meditation and energy work and honestly why we use the term energy the way we do. Which you and I've had many conversations at this point about it. So Gardner was a British civil servant at kind of the last gasp of the great empire of Britain. He spent time in like Malaysia, Indonesia, all over there in Southeastern Asia, and culturally over there, they have these techniques. So, like in India, you have various traditions of Ayurvedic practice that use prana, which is kind of like chi. It's like your life force, that animating force of you. And they have various forms of this all over Asia. So he brings a lot of their practices back over. Now, they have almost no cultural context because he rewrites it and repackages it as this is what witches do. Um, and that is different than what had ever been used in Europe at that point. There were none of those practices. There were different approaches to it. In Asia, much older cultures, they were systemized. They had this was their medicine. They had entire processes and like practice fields around this. And it comes over here kind of stands context, which is one of the reasons why a lot of Wiccans are like, well, I can't meditate. It's because you don't know enough about it to know that there's other ways to do it. So Gardner is kind of the start of where a lot of this comes from. And the way I approach this, and I don't know if I've ever used these words with you specifically, Dia. Um, I look at magic, I look at that flow, our ability to reach out into the world as coming from one of three places, or a mixture of these three. One is magia. And magia is a term, I forget where I've picked it up along the way, but whenever we're talking about our personal energy, we're putting our intention, our animating force into something. That's magia. That's what we get from Gardner and his meditation and energy practices. And then there's some folks will call it goetia, but there's working with spirits, more traditional witchcraft stuff. And then there's theurgy, which is where you're working with gods that are worshipped and deified and all that. So yeah, that was Gardner's addition. And then you had other practices like Kabbalah and things like that. These other meditative, mystical processes that kind of came in from all over Europe and fraternal orders and things like that.
Well, it seems to me that Gardner used his, he talks about the Eightfold Path.
Hmm.
And so that's a meditation on something because
Hmm.
cords, which is a blood flow restriction technique to help bring you into a meditative state.
Yep.
The scourge, same thing, just
Mhm.
different tool. I can't think of all 8 of them right now off the top of my head. Sex is one for sure.
Mhm.
Again, because it can
Gardner's
bring you
favorite.
into bring you an alternative state. The use of illicit or hallucinogens is another one. Again, because it can bring you into a meditative state. So there are 8 of those. If you can look it up, it's the Eightfold Path. And so Gardner relied heavily on something versus nothing.
Mhm.
Um, and 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 he was also something on focus. So when, what I was taught was when you're doing one of these meditative techniques that relies on something, then you're also focused on intently on one thing, whether it be the sigil you made and powering that sigil, or whether you made, the talisman you made and powering the talisman.
Mhm.
So it's a focus. It's the use of something, the scourge, in order to bring your focus into one thing and kind of charge that one thing. That's kind of how I've always
Mhm.
envisioned how he kind of taught it, because that's kind of how it was taught to me. But all of this kind of comes down to the reduction of stress. That's the biggest benefit of meditation, is the reduction of stress, right? And that's what these when you're meditating with something, you're trying to bring yourself out of your normal state of stress and into a different state of consciousness.
Mhm.
Um, so, how does stress work in our bodies, and why does meditation counteract that?
You give the single best gifts. This is why you're my bestie. Like, I can go on political rants. I am easily irritated and can just rant forever, but one of my all-time favorite conversations is on stress because I am a stressed out person and I cause stress to others because I am stressed out. And I'm my mother now, so highly dramatic. So stress is a physical reaction. So the definition of stress is literally anything that causes central nervous system reaction. So stress is determined by
Mhm,
the release of hormones, cortisols, acetylcholines, norepinephrines, all this other fun stuff. Um, we as human beings, specifically upright hominid mammal primate people, in our current culture, have a very weird relationship with anxiety and stress. We are
mhm,
addicted to it.
mhm,
I'm afraid of sounding like that guy that always shows up on TikTok saying cortisol and do this and all your belly fat will go away. None of those work. Don't do those things. Um, but if you are stressed, think of anxiety as the beginning of fight or flight. So we all know about fight or flight, at
mm,
least to an extent. You get shocked and you want to run away and all that fun stuff. Um, if you are at work and you are constantly stressed out, you are
mhm,
in the beginning stages of fight or flight, but you're not going all the way into it. So you're
mhm,
releasing cortisols. Anybody who works a 9 to 5 job that they are just miserable at, and you either overeat at lunch or you have to be reminded to take your lunch because you never get hungry. That's cortisol. That's one of the effects that
mhm,
it's having on you. And we set up these short paths of anxiety and stress. It's called the nerve reflex arc. If you are, we'll
mm,
use again the example of driving to a job you hate. You're driving along, you take the same path to work every day because unless you have some kind of mobile job, your path to work stays the same. You're going to pass the same signs, the same fast food places, the same shops and all that. You are stressed by the time you get to work. You can
mm,
wake up in the best mood, but by the time you get to work, you're already in the place of stress. So we have programmed ourselves to be stressful. Now, there is a book, a wonderful book called Memoirs of a Primate, and it was written by a neuroscientist who kind of described this encounter. You're watching a lion hunt a zebra, and maybe the zebra is getting a drink of water and he's not paying attention, and the lion jumps on him. And lion chases zebra all around, but zebra gets away. If you watch the zebra for a while, as it's standing there, after about 90 seconds, it starts to twitch and flick and have these like little
mhm,
spasms, right? And then after a few minutes, it stops. And then if you test this zebra, it's not like it just almost lost its life because it was being chased by a giant lion, right? because animals still have the mechanism by which they can discharge all of that. Humans, because we like to think a lot, have kind of bred that out of ourselves. Our
Mm,
world doesn't still have that mechanism. So we just carry it with us all the
mm,
time, every
mm,
day, making us twitchy and reactive and emotionally inflamed all the time. And that's why we suffer from adrenal fatigue. That's why we have an obesity epidemic, in addition to food standards and FDA, which we can't get into because we only have an hour. But that stress, like it's anything that works on us that excites us, and good or bad excitement. And we become addicted to it and don't know how to live outside of it because everybody around us is in the same spot.
mm,
And then we try to walk a craft practice, and it's hard to be present when literally all of the deck is stacked against you. And
mm.
you've never been taught how to do that. And that's why so many people fail at meditation.
Hmm. That's interesting. I, my mind is going 50 different places, and none of them are linear. So I, all I keep coming back to is that I just recently learned about fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And I'd
Mhm.
heard about fawn, but I didn't understand what it was.
Never
But
heard.
this is something evidently they've noted women do in stress.
Hmm.
And it is specific to women mostly. And what it is when a woman starts complimenting a man because she's feeling not safe.
Hmm.
And so she'll start laughing louder, um, drawing attention to herself, saying things nice to the guy to stroke his ego, to try to make
Hmm.
him feel okay with the interaction so that she can get out of it. That is fun. And it is a response to stress that specifically women notice. And the funny thing about it was I read about it, and then I was on this date with this crazy ass man. And I found myself, he leaned in for a kiss, and out of fun, I kissed him back. Just a lip touch, right? And then I withdrew, and I thought, oh my God, I'm fawning. I'm fawning right now, right? Like I was suddenly aware that what I was doing was trying to negotiate the situation to get out of the situation,
Hmm.
right? So if that required a quick kiss on the lips, fine. As long as you let me go and get my car and get away from you, that's fine. That's fun. So it's a new one for me in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That is a new one that they've added recently. And for some reason it wouldn't go, like I kept thinking about it, so I thought I'd mention it. So we've talked about how stress works on our
Hmm.
psyche. We've talked a little bit about the mechanisms of it, and some of the positive. I think most people know what the positives of meditation are. uh, you
Hmm.
you have the release of the stress that's on you all the time. There's more energy that comes with that. You're more energized after a good meditation session, or you're enticed to sleep, which will energize you, right?
Hmm.
So you eventually get that. You also are put in, I use meditation the most when I'm automatic writing. So it's that place where you meditate for divination purposes, but I use it to automatically write like whenever I'm writing, I'm automatic writing. It means I'm not physically really thinking about what I'm putting on paper. I'm just
Hmm.
writing until something comes onto the paper, and then I'll go back later and edit it and put it in a better form. But it's a almost free association, if you will,
Hmm.
of my brain. It's kind of how I process things when I'm writing. So that's one of the benefits of meditations, because it can put you in these different states of attraction. And I also think it can put you in the state where you are able to connect to divinity. I hear a lot from practitioners. I've never met a God. I've never had a God talk to me. I've never seen a sign. And one of the things that I do is I make them start noting random signs. And one of them came back to me after doing this practice. And what I mean by this is you go around, and if you see something like a star, even if it's not supposed to be a star or a pentacle that is representative of your faith, but you see it and that's what you identify it as. You take a picture of it and you take note of it.
Mhm.
And you kind of make, I encourage people to make a little photo journal in their phone of these different pictures, right? My favorite one is the Jägermeister, and I'm putting this up, the Jägermeister um, deer, which always reminds me of Prudinos, right? But it's the Jägermeister symbol. Um, and for those who just saw me grab this Jägermeister off my altar, it's for my beloved dead Renee. That's why I keep it on my altar. As an aside, I don't knock back the Jägermeister every once in a while. There's a reason why it's on my altar. Um, but that's another sign, one of those signs and symbols. And she came back to me eventually and she goes, I think I'm getting signs all the time. And I said, I know you are. You just
Mhm.
didn't know that you were because you didn't recognize it. And that's part of what training and meditation does is it helps you recognize when divinity is speaking to you. Divinity, when you, those of you who say out there, divinity isn't speaking to me, no, they are. They are speaking to you. You just don't know they're speaking to you yet. But it doesn't mean they're not speaking to you. They are speaking to you. Remember two things absolutely about this. Number one is your higher self deals in symbols and only in symbols. It doesn't deal in words. It deals in colors. It deals in texture. It deals in anything that is nonverbal. That is how your higher self communicates. So when you're looking for divinity to speak to you, they're not going to come down and say, I am the divine. Now listen to me. That's not how that works. They're going to come to you and interact with you in the way your higher mind can adhere it. So by flower, by fauna. Why do you think we believe the earth is having a message and giving us that message? That's why. So that's number one. And number two is you just haven't tuned in yet, but you can. You can tune in. And Kyler, how do we tune in?
Meditation, dear.
The look on his face. Oh,
I was reading something over here and I was listening and I'm like, oh, it's directed at me. I wasn't just not paying 100% attention. That's not a repeat at
his
all.
eyes got big, y'all. His eyes got big, and you can tell he was like, oh crap, she wants me to say something now.
Like, I wasn't prepared for this. Um,
Oh, I needed that laugh. That was good.
um, um, so how do we plug in and tune in? So to toss in on what you're saying, yes, the meditation is how we do that plug in. It's what I call the necessary step back because so I'm an
Mhm,
artist, like I do traditional media art, and even though now I'm mostly digital, I have learned that because I hyperfocus, I will spend too much time on something. I had this really amazing art teacher in Florida who I call him the art Nazi, not because of any kind of, white supremacy leanings. He was a really nice man, but he was like the Gestapo. Like he would tell you once or twice, and then that was it. Like he would tear up your composition, which for an artist is deeply traumatizing. And
mm,
I would hyper focus on little things without looking at the major composition. And he taught me the necessity of stepping back. So, how do we do that? We have to unplug ourselves.
mhm,
And to unplug ourselves, we have to come to a state of presence. All of these are
mhm,
different phrases and words for saying we're here, rooted in this moment, in this space, and we're not reacting to anything. We
mhm,
calm ourselves. We
mhm,
remove the stress. I even though I know that as a psychological and neurological theory doesn't exist anymore, I have to silence my left brain chatter because I have attention deficit and a little bit of the hyperactive. My brain goes constantly in 10 different directions. Like a minute ago, you're like, I had 50 things going on. I call that fractal thinking. It's very pretty, but it doesn't usually get a lot done because you can't focus on anything.
mhm,
Um, for me, I start with breath.
mm,
It's literally the easiest, and it actually will calm your that shift from parasympathetic into sympathetic or sympathetic into parasympathetic. Your breath is one of the key factors in that. And so for me, I will do box breathing, which is you breathe in
Okay.
for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, empty lungs for 4. So it's a total of 16 counts, and you want to fill your lungs in that 4 count. And eventually, you're going to have a physiological reaction of calming down. Like you'll actually be present and you'll be in the process of grounding at that point. What is grounding,
Mhm.
Dia?
So grounding is the act of I think of it as the act of taking all the energy surrounding yourself and connecting it to the earth so that there I to me it's a circular visualization. The energy is draining out of your body, going down into the earth, and clean, clear, concise, focused energy is coming back into your body and going back through. And it's kind of this circular um, thing. And grounding as a technique is mostly to bring yourself into this moment of awareness. So one of the ways that I ground, because Dick used to make me do instant grounding, and so I would say my hands reach out for air and fire, my feet are grounded in earth and water, my mind, body, spirit are one. But what I'm actually doing during that time period is I'm pulling all of that energy in and I'm running it out of my body, and then I'm checking into my present awareness. Um, that is grounding. And I was going to say, so I know somebody out here did this. He started talking about the box breathing and they said, I hyperventilate. And I understand because I do too. So here's the thing. My condition causes my heart rate to rest between 93 and 100 beats per minute. If you don't know, that's not right. You shouldn't rest that high, but that's how high I rest. And so consequently, I'm breathing at a much more rapid rate. So you can do two things with this. First of all, you're taught, if you think you're hyperventilating, you're counting too slow. Count faster. Nobody says it has to be 1,000, two, you can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't, there's not a speed that's going to do this, right? It's the actual breathing that's going to do this. So that's number one. Change how you're counting. And number two is a way that I do it that's not breathing is I check in with my body and I do things like I feel my feet. One foot is on the rung of my chair, one is on my floor. One my butt is in the chair. The chair has a texture to it. It's not leather, it's cloth. My back has a pillow behind it on the small of my back. Right? Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm bringing myself into my body and I'm orienting my body into the place that it is in this moment only as it is connected to the earth, nothing else. Not what am I thinking, not what do I hear in another room. This has to be what I am physically touching. This is also one of the ways that they teach people who have disassociation because of trauma. This is one of the techniques that they teach to bring you back to your current place if you're having a traumatic reenactment of an episode. So you're having a post-traumatic stress reaction. One of the things they do is say, where are you? I'm in my office. What are you sitting on? I'm sitting on my chair. What does it feel like? It's not leather, it's cloth. What kind of cloth? It kind of has a grid texture to it, right? So you are actually grounding yourself. The other thing they tell you to do is touch things and name what you're touching. I am touching my desk. On my right hand side is my tablet. On my left hand side is my monitor. Just really orient yourself in as much detail as possible into the location that you're at. We'll do the same thing as box breathing, in my opinion. That's
Hmm.
just my opinion. That's in my experience. That's one of the things that I do because I do have a hard time with box breathing, especially box breathing in a group because they do it for the average human, not necessarily for the disabled human. And that is a different thing, which is why I never do box breathing in large groups because I know there's going to be someone out there who can't breathe at the same rate as everybody else. So you want to be able to have them do something else that'll bring them into that meditative state. Sorry, did I Are we still on topic? I don't know now.
Yeah, no, we actually 100% are, because you just described meditation on everything. Like that's
Okay.
how you go into meditation on everything. It's not like boom, everything everywhere all at once. You add things in slowly until you've expanded your awareness, but you're still rooted in that space. And 100%, a lot of folks out there have trouble meditating because they will have a reaction. Like the idea that they have to relax somehow creates more stress that they have to work through to get to a state of relaxation. So just feeling your body with in massage therapy, we call that a standing awareness. I would usually start every massage session with stand there, feel your feet, feel it connected to the floor, and then like a scanner going up through your body. How are you balanced? Are you on the balls of your feet, the heels of your feet? You can do this 100 times a day to bring yourself into a state of presence. And you're going to be amazed at how adaptive you are. And what do I mean by that? Adaptive. We are adaptive organisms. If we are given a stimuli and it's given slowly enough and increases slowly enough, we won't even notice it's happening. Um, and that's how stress works. Big time stress things we notice right away, but the really debilitating stress is the one that starts slow and then becomes untenable until you've got an eye twitch and all kinds of tics and all sorts of things are going on. How did I get here? It's been that slow increase. But what you just described is something I do every day because I work with the public and they stress me out. People stress me out a lot, and I can't show it because I'm in a customer service role. So I have to be in that space. I'm sure so many of our listeners, they have jobs, and those jobs are probably a huge source of their stress. Like I think that was a great addition.
Okay, great. And one of the other things that I was going to say is don't, if you don't connect with the body, connecting with your body, you can connect with an object.
Hmm.
So you could take a crystal but again, it's about the detail. It's what is the crystal cold? Does it warm up as I hold it in my hands? Does it have jagged pointed edges? Is it smooth? If I look at it, is there a texture that I can see that I can't feel? What does that texture look like? It is just bringing your focus into one thing. Um, that's annoying. My phone is on theater. It should say nothing. Sorry about that. But bringing your focus into one thing is what will help you find that meditative state and that meditative place. Um, so I've had a thought, and I wanted to ask, and we need to wrap up. But um, before I ask this thought, I want to ask you: is there anything that we haven't mentioned that you wanted to cover?
Um, Not much. I think the only other thing I would probably throw out there is we talked about like there are all these different kinds of meditation, specifically meditation on something which works so well for most Americans. There's like five main categories of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to just kind of give folks kind of a foundation to kind of explore on their own. You've got like concept, which is you're focusing on a single concept, a thought, a question guided, and that's where you're listening to something like maybe a recording of somebody guiding you through a meditation. Physical, dancing. Dancing is meditation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Playing drums, playing a flute, playing any kind of instrument, anything
Belly
that
dancing.
focus is a meditative thing. So if you like, for me, it's drawing. There's a reason I draw 4 hours every day because it keeps me having feelings and not felonies because feelings can turn into felonies if they get too big and unmanageable. Um, and then like single point meditation, that's focusing on breath, focusing on like staring at a candle flame, like the candle in the void, all that, and then sound, like literally listening to music, even listening to a heartbeat rhythm, which God's bless you if you can do that without freaking out. If I hear human heartbeat tracks, I cannot function. I paralyze. Like after a while I'm like this, it's creepy. I feel like I'm on a horror set. I can't do this anymore. And then I will turn it off or I will flee that place. I will flee it quickly. faster than I normally move.
So, and also sound, don't forget, we mentioned earlier that there is a science to sound, and you can find
Mhm,
these tracks on YouTube in an endless loop, kind of like you would if you listen to a soundtrack to go to bed.
mhm,
So don't don't think that this is some big muckety muck thing. Go on YouTube, look up,
mhm.
sound meditation, and you'll find all kinds. And
Oh
certainly
yeah.
you'll find something that you enjoy. So one of the things I want to say about alternative state, because we're talking ultimately about alternative states of being, is that I have a theory that people who are raised in the um, Pentecostal world um, are taught to kind of live in an altered state because we're taught to listen for the voice of God all the time. And although they use prayer as the singular way to get there, but they do that. And I have found a lot of other people like myself who were raised in these Southern Baptist evangelical, and I mean evangelical, like Pentecostal type churches, have also seem to have this innate ability to kind of be in an altered state because we've been in basically ritual that drives you to an altered state through music and timing and things like that. And I'm just wondering if you'd ever thought about that, or if that had ever cropped up for you, or if I'm the only one who thinks about weird things like this.
I think some of our experiences are universal, and then some are just like, whoa, that is what? I've never experienced that. No, I think you're very right. And I think with the ecstatic religions, like so Christianity is an ecstatic
Yes.
religion, Wicca, witchcraft, all that, these are paths rooted to the earth, and so they're technically fertility religions, even though we're not generally engaging in the fertility making stuff with them, at least not all the time. Um, yeah, I think being in that ecstatic state when you go to church, when you have to be there and just be taken in that spirit. So even if you're like a Sunday Christian, you go in, you feel the feelings, you sing the songs, you're there, and it's easy to be carried away with that because you're in that state with other people. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a ready-made vehicle for getting you kind of in that place. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a great call out because yeah, I think the number one thing that I have experienced with students is doubting when they're getting a message,
Right.
doubting that their experience is real and valid because somebody else didn't tell them they're having it.
Right.
And that
Or
it,
it's Yeah, or it's not in a setting that they
mhm,
attribute
yep.
that this is when sacred things happen. Because
Hmm.
it's one of the things that ecstatic religions, especially Christianity, teach you is it happens in the synagogue, it happens in
Oh,
the temple, it happens in the church, um, it happens in the vestibule. It's got to be someplace sacred, and that's when you feel it, or the cemetery, or whatever. But that's not true. It is a state of mind that you carry with you. It's
mhm,
just in and that it has to be somehow different than it was for you when you were in an ecstatic Christian religion. The mechanism isn't different. It's the same. The voice might be different. The voice might sound different because you have outgrown the boxy, this is all one way kind of thing thinking. Your mind has expanded. And so now you can hear different things. So yeah, it's just something that I thought of. And I actually had a very interesting conversation one time with Janet Farrar, of all people,
I was
about
thinking about her.
about ecstatic religions
Mhm.
and how they are, and which I hope we're going to talk about a little bit more in a future podcast. Actually, we're going to talk to hopefully an author who has some experience in this, so in ecstatic religions and their effect on future paganism for that person. So, but we have come to the end of our time. This is it. Um, we need to do Resiliency Corner, and you were going to talk a little bit about the tree meditation.
I was. If you will allow me to do a little shuffling, I actually had a different idea that occurred to me this morning over coffee while I was eating my hash brown and becoming a verbal being again. Um, so we can definitely do the tree meditation. It's one of the most well-known. But I also have a four elements meditation that
Okay.
I do. So the tree meditation I started with when I was a wee baby pagan, and
Right.
eventually it evolved into the four elements. And what I will do is I will sit myself, or I will see myself. I will sit on the ground. If I can be outside, that's great, but it's not necessary. You don't need anything other than yourself. Sit yourself on the earth if you can, or whatever floor you're on. um, See yourself sitting there, and then see yourself reaching down and the earth reaching up, and not just in your body, but in that field of you. Yoda said it best: luminous beings are we, not this crude flesh. All of you has the vine, the rock, the crystal, everything that is the solidity and foundation of the earth, just kind of reaching up through your body, crystallizing you, grounding you. Nothing is as solid as rock, right? Or maybe even diamond, whatever, resonates best with you. And then as you sit there, this being of earth, then see yourself becoming fluid, and you become a being of water. And then that water turns into gas and it's swirling air. And then it catches fire, and you are a being of fire. And as you rotate through all of these things, you are cleansing your aura, you are balancing yourself, you're grounding, you're doing all of those. And you come out the other end feeling clean and refreshed. And that is one of my favorite Pretty Little meditations, because it's one that, for me to engage with, I have to really kind of focus on a bit, and it makes me pay attention to it. The tree meditation does as well, but I thought this might be something that people have had less of an opportunity to encounter before.
I like that. The one I'm going to leave with is a meditation that I started using as a baby pagan and that I've continued to use even unto this day. And it is the creation of your own meditation room in your mind. So, what you do is, I pictured what would my perfect altar room look like. I would close my eyes and I would create um, altars in the four directions, and then there was a center altar, and then I had fire has you know a fireplace in it, and I basically create in my mind's eye exactly what this altar room looks like for me. And I tend this altar room, so I go there, I spend time there. When I'm going to meditate, it's the first place that I meditate myself into. So I think of myself in this room. First, I'm in this room, and then I'm going to go wherever I need to go. And there's an entryway in my room to the other side, if you will. There's actually several, but some of them are just a hole in the ground, a hole in a tree, a pool that I can dive into and then come out on the other side into the etheric. I have developed all kinds of ways in this altar room. And I think it's a really good place because it gives you, for those of us who like to think of something, it gives you a place to go where you can create anything you need and you get used to being in that state. So I would encourage you to do that if you've not. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is start looking for those symbols, take pictures of those symbols, keep a journal of symbols that you see out in the world, and don't don't let any symbol go by, right? Don't think, oh, I can't use that symbol because it is actually, the sign for McDonald's or whatever. If that M has a meaning for you today, then you should take that as your symbol for the day. Don't don't dismiss the symbols that are being used, and don't ever forget your higher power is always talking to you in symbols.
Mhm.
That's the only way it talks to you. So that's what we have for Resiliency Corner. I always end with, I hope you have a magical day. Kyler, how are you ending today?
I'm going to end with a line from The Charge of the Goddess by Valiente, because I think it really kind of resonates with where we are today. And you who think to find me, know your seeking and yearning shall avail you not, unless you know the mystery, that if that which you seek you find not within, you will never find without. Blessed be.
So mote it be. Thank you for listening to Urban Unwitches. Please reach co-host Kyler Petrie and Rev Dia at urbanunwitches@gmail.com. That's urbanunwitches@gmail.com to suggest topics for shows or comment on past episodes. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches. Follow us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches to watch all episodes. And listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. Rev Dia is a witch for hire as an officiant, life coach, astrologer, geomancer, and medium, and can be reached at www.revdia.net. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Circle Podcast, presented by Circle Sanctuary, and produced for all who follow nature-centered paths. Join us throughout the week for various programming connecting with the community around the world. Please don't forget to watch for updates on the Circle Sanctuary website at www.circlesanctuary.org. Follow us on Facebook at Facebook/Circle Podcasts. We can also be found on your favorite podcast hosting sites, such as iTunes, Spotify, and others. Until next time, many blessings.